How are you guys doing? Today is Tuesday, December 15th, 2020, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Simpson for this episode of The Elite. I'm going to take you through yesterday's Monday Night Football matchups. And of course, we'll take you through the preseason basketball games in the NBA, along with college basketball as well. And just to get started, jumping into last night's Monday Night Football game in Week 14 between the Baltimore Ravens and the Cleveland Browns. The Baltimore Ravens went into Cleveland and were able to pull off a 47-42 win, where the Ravens kind of dominated for a lot of the game. The Browns got back into it, but the Ravens pulled away with a field goal and a safety on the very last two plays. After it was 42-42, and the score ended up being 47-42 as the Baltimore Ravens got their 8th win of the season. For the Cleveland Browns, their starting quarterback, Baker Mayfield, would complete 28 of his 47 passes, throwing for 343 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. He also ran for 23 yards on the ground with a touchdown, which would give him 366 total yards. He would have a total of 366 yards with 3 total touchdowns, and then his only turnover being his interception. On the ground, their leading rusher was Nick Chubb, who had 82 yards on 17 carries and 2 touchdowns. Also, Kareem Hunt had 33 yards and 6 carries on the ground, and he was able to get a rushing touchdown as well. Through the air, Kareem Hunt was able to get 77 yards on 6 receptions and a touchdown, which would give him a total of 110 yards and 2 touchdowns from scrimmage. Rashard Higgins would finish with 68 yards on 6 receptions and a touchdown. Jarvis Landry would finish with 52 yards and 6 receptions, and he also completed a pass for 12 yards. So he would have a pretty big game too. And like I said, Rashard Higgins and Kareem Hunt having both of the receiving touchdowns of the day. On the defensive side of the ball, Carl Joseph led the Browns in tackles. He had 7 total. Sheldon Richardson and Sion Takitaki would end up with a sack for them. Olivier Vernon would have 3 tackles, and he would have 2 sacks. That would account for all 4 of the team's sacks. Looking at how the Baltimore Ravens fared, their starting quarterback, reigning 2019 NFL MVP, Lamar Jackson, would complete 11 of his 17 passes for 163 yards and a touchdown. Also on the ground, he ran for 124 yards on 9 carries and 2 touchdowns. That would give him a total of 287 total yards of offense to go with his 3 touchdowns. And he didn't turn the ball over once, so that was a pretty big game for him. Also on the ground, J.K. Dobbins finished with 53 yards and 13 carries as he had a touchdown. Gus Edwards had 49 yards on 7 carries as he had 2 touchdowns. Through the air, the leading receiver was Mark Andrews, who had 78 yards on 5 receptions. Marquise Hollywood Brown had 50 yards on 2 receptions, and one of his receptions was a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, Chuck Clark led the team in tackles as nobody on the Ravens was able to register a single sack, but Tyus Bowser was able to get an interception to go along with his 3 passes. And with this win, the Baltimore Ravens are now 8-5, and with this loss, the Browns are now 9-4. Currently looking at the AFC North, the Cleveland Browns are still sitting second in the AFC North. They are 2 games behind the 11-2 Pittsburgh Steelers, and they are 1 game ahead of the 8-5 Baltimore Ravens. And looking at the Ravens, they are, like I said, they're 1 game behind the 9-4 Cleveland Browns, and then they're 5.5 games ahead of the 4th place Cincinnati Bengals at 2-10-1. Currently looking at the AFC playoff race, with this loss, the Browns are still sitting at the top of the wild card with a 9-4 record, as they have the same record as the Indianapolis Colts. And in the 8th spot, you have the Baltimore Ravens, who have the same record as the 7th seed Dolphins. But for some reason the Dolphins are sitting in that 7th spot. But with 3 games left, the Ravens are most definitely in the hunt for a playoff spot following this win. And this was a very big win for the Baltimore Ravens last night, considering what would have happened to them had they lost. Really quickly looking at the NBA, looking at last night's preseason matchups, the Cleveland Cavaliers were able to get their 2nd win of the preseason by beating the Pacers 116-106. Dante Exum led the way with 23 points. The Toronto Raptors were able to beat the Charlotte Hornets 112-109 as Fred VanVleet scored 23 points. The Raptors are 2-0 in preseason as the Hornets dropped to 0-2. The New Orleans Pelicans were able to get their first win of the preseason as they beat the Heat 114-92. Brandon Ingram had 22 points. Tyler Hero had 17 for Miami. Pelicans are 1-0. Heat are 0-1. But of course, this is preseason. The Mavericks were able to beat the Bucks 128-112 as Josh Richardson led the way for Dallas, scoring 23 points. The reigning MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo, finished with 24 points and 14 rebounds in his second preseason matchup. The Memphis Grizzlies were able to beat the Minnesota Timberwolves 123 to 104 to go up 2-0 in the preseason. Dylan Brooks had 21 points, as Rondae Hollis Jefferson had 17 points for Minnesota. Last but not least, the Utah Jazz were able to beat the Phoenix Suns 111 to 92, as Rudy Gobert had 11 points and 20 rebounds. Devin Booker scored 27 for the Suns, but it simply wasn't enough. And then, of course, there's more preseason basketball today as the Celtics play the Sixers, the Spurs play the Rockets, and the Warriors play the Kings. Celtics, Sixers, and Warriors, Kings are both going to be on TNT, so those are going to be games to watch. And really quickly looking at NCAA basketball from yesterday, unranked Marquette was able to beat 9th-ranked Creighton 89 to 84. DJ Carton led the way with 20 points. Marquette is now 5-2 with this win, 1-0 in the Big East, and 9th-ranked Creighton is now 4-2. They're now 0-1 in the Big East. 19th-ranked Rutgers was able to beat Maryland 74 to 60, as Ron Harper Jr. led the way with 27 points. Dante Scott had 20 points for Maryland. With this win, Rutgers is undefeated. They are 5-0, and with this loss, Maryland is 4-2. Rutgers now 1-0 in the Big Ten. Maryland is 0-1 in the Big Ten. And then, of course, there were some postponed and canceled games. But looking into tonight, 24th ranked Clemson will go to Virginia to play against Virginia Tech on ACC Network. At 7 o'clock, 10th ranked Tennessee will host unranked Appalachian State, as Appalachian State is 4-1, Tennessee is 2-0. 13th ranked Illinois will host unranked Minnesota. Minnesota is 6-0, Illinois is 4-2, so that might be an interesting matchup. On the Big Ten Network at 8 o'clock, unranked Loyola Chicago will play 12th ranked Wisconsin. Loyola Chicago is 3-0. Wisconsin is 4-1. At 8:30, 15th ranked Florida State will host unranked Georgia Tech. Florida State is 3-0 and Georgia Tech is 2-2. And right now, that's what college basketball is looking like for today. That's everything that's going on. And once again, it is Tuesday, December 15th, 2020 out here in this quarantine. And following Thursday's NFL matchup to start Week 15. And in Week 15, for Week 15 on Thursday, we are going to see the Chargers face off against the Raiders, the AFC West matchup. And following that game, I'll get back to you considering most of the NBA games right now are preseason. The regular season doesn't start till the 22nd. But of course, with that said, I want to appreciate everyone for tuning in and listening to all 7.5 minutes of this piece. I hope all is well, and I'll get back to you on Friday. Peace out.